Logic and Paradoxes for Dreamers, Zeno to Russell, a series of gentle contradictions. Introduction, The Whispers of Contradiction. In the quiet chambers of the mind, where thoughts drift like clouds across a boundless sky, there exists a peculiar landscape, a realm not of solid ground and clear horizons, but of shifting perspectives and gentle contradictions. This is the domain of paradoxes, those enigmatic puzzles that tease the edges of our understanding, inviting us to question the very fabric of reality and the logic we use to comprehend it. For the dreamer, the philosopher, and the curious soul, these intellectual labyrinths are not obstacles to be overcome, but invitations to explore the deeper currents of thought, where the seemingly impossible dances with the undeniably true. Our journey begins not with the harsh glare of absolute certainty, but with the soft, diffused light of inquiry. We will wander through ancient Greek marketplaces where philosophers pondered the nature of motion, sail on conceptual seas where identity shifts with every passing moment, and delve into the intricate weave of language where truth can betray itself. This is not a lecture, but a guided meditation on the beautiful strangeness of logic, a 3-hour contemplation designed to soothe the analytical mind while stirring the imaginative spirit. We will approach these paradoxes not as rigid problems demanding singular solutions, but as poetic expressions of the universe's inherent complexity, each one a whisper of contradiction that encourages us to dream more deeply. What, then, are these paradoxes that we speak of? At their core, paradoxes are statements or situations that, despite seemingly sound reasoning, lead to a conclusion that is self-contradictory or logically unacceptable. They are the intellectual equivalent of an Escher drawing, where stairs ascend endlessly or water flows uphill, defying conventional understanding. Yet, unlike mere fallacies or errors in reasoning, true paradoxes often expose fundamental tensions within our conceptual frameworks, revealing the limits of our language, our mathematics, or even our perception of reality. They are not simply tricks of the mind, but profound insights disguised as riddles, compelling us to refine our definitions, re-evaluate our assumptions, and expand the boundaries of what we consider possible. For the dreamer, the allure of paradox lies in its ability to transcend the mundane. While the waking world often demands clear answers and definitive lines, the dreamscape thrives on ambiguity, on the merging of opposites, and on the fluid transformation of form. Paradoxes, in their essence, mirror this dreamlike quality. They challenge the rigid dichotomies of true and false, existence and non-existence, motion and stillness, inviting us to consider a reality where these distinctions are not always as clear-cut as they appear. They encourage a kind of intellectual flexibility, a willingness to hold conflicting ideas in mind simultaneously, much like a dream can present a familiar place with an unsettling, unfamiliar atmosphere. Our journey through these gentle contradictions will span millennia, from the ancient mists of Elia to the early 20th century intellectual ferment. We will encounter the timeless wisdom of Zeno, whose arguments against motion continue to captivate and confound, forcing us to confront the infinite divisibility of space and time. From there, we will leap forward to the dawn of modern logic and mathematics, where Bertrand Russell's elegant yet devastating paradox exposed a foundational flaw in the very concept of sets, shaking the bedrock of mathematical certainty. But our exploration will not be limited to these two titans. We will also delve into the labyrinth of language with the lyre paradox, navigate the shifting sands of identity with the ship of Theseus, and confront the unsettling implications of time travel with the grandfather paradox, among others. Each paradox will be presented not as a dry academic exercise, but as a narrative, a story woven with threads of logic and imagination, designed to resonate with the dreamer within. This write-up aims to be more than just an exposition of logical puzzles. It is an invitation to engage with philosophy in a way that is both intellectually rigorous and deeply imaginative. We will explore the historical context of each paradox, the philosophical debates they ignited, and the various attempts to resolve them, from ancient solutions to modern mathematical and scientific perspectives. Yet, throughout this exploration, we will maintain a tone that is gentle, contemplative, and accessible, avoiding overly technical jargon where possible and focusing instead on the intuitive beauty and profound implications of these intellectual challenges. The goal is not necessarily to provide definitive answers. For some paradoxes, perhaps none truly exist, but to foster a deeper appreciation for the questions themselves, and for the endless dance between what we perceive and what truly is. Prepare to embark on a journey where the familiar becomes strange, and the strange becomes a pathway to new understanding. Let us allow our minds to wander, to embrace the subtle inconsistencies, and to find beauty in the very act of questioning. For in the realm of logic and paradoxes, the greatest insights often emerge not from finding a single, clear path, but from exploring the myriad ways in which reality can gently contradict itself. This is a journey for dreamers, for those who find wonder in the intricate patterns of thought, and for anyone willing to spend 3 hours contemplating the delightful ambiguities that lie at the heart of existence. Welcome to the gentle contradictions. Welcome to the dream. Part 1, Ancient Echoes, Zeno's Illusions of Motion. Chapter 1, The Dichotomy, Halving the Path to Infinity. In the sun-drenched landscapes of ancient Greece, amidst the olive groves and the bustling agora, a school of thought emerged that dared to challenge the very notion of change and multiplicity. This was the Eleatic school, founded by Parmenides, who posited a radical idea: reality is a single, unchanging, indivisible whole. Motion, plurality, and all the vibrant dynamism of the world we perceive, he argued, are mere illusions, deceptive appearances that veil a deeper, static truth. It was in this intellectual crucible that Zeno of Elea, Parmenides' devoted student and intellectual heir, forged a series of arguments designed to bolster his master's controversial claims. These arguments, known today as Zeno's paradoxes, are not mere logical puzzles. They are profound meditations on the nature of space, time, and infinity, presented with a deceptive simplicity that has captivated and confounded thinkers for millennia. Our first encounter with Zeno's gentle contradictions brings us to the dichotomy paradox, a seemingly straightforward argument that unravels the very possibility of movement. Imagine, if you will, a dreamer setting out on a path, perhaps to reach a distant star or merely the edge of their own bed. Before this dreamer can arrive at their destination, Zeno would gently whisper, they must first traverse half the distance. And before they can reach that halfway point, they must first cover half of that half, which is a quarter of the total distance. This process, Zeno insists, continues infinitely. Before reaching the quarter mark, they must complete an eighth, then a 16th, and so on, ad infinitum. The path, no matter how short, becomes an endless series of ever smaller segments, each demanding to be traversed before the next can even begin. The implications of this seemingly innocuous observation are startling. If every journey, no matter how brief, requires the completion of an infinite number of tasks, an infinite number of halfway points, then how can any journey ever truly begin, let alone be completed? The dreamer, poised at the start of their path, finds themselves trapped in an endless prelude, forever approaching the first step without ever quite taking it. The very act of initiating motion becomes an impossibility, as there is always a preceding halfway point that must first be reached. This is the heart of the dichotomy paradox. It suggests that travel over any finite distance can be neither completed nor even commenced, leading to the unsettling conclusion that all motion, the very essence of our lived experience, must be an illusion. To the waking mind, this conclusion feels absurd. We move, we walk, we run, the world around us is in constant flux. Yet, Zeno's argument, presented with such elegant simplicity, is remarkably difficult to refute using only the tools of everyday intuition. It forces us to confront the concept of infinity not as a distant, abstract notion, but as an immediate, inescapable presence in the smallest increments of space and time. It's like dreaming of a staircase that, no matter how many steps you climb, always reveals another half step before you can reach the next landing. The destination recedes with every effort, an ever-present horizon that can never be truly touched. The philosophical ripples of the dichotomy paradox spread far and wide, influencing thinkers for centuries. Aristotle, a keen observer of the natural world, grappled with Zeno's arguments, attempting to dismantle them by distinguishing between potential and actual infinity. He argued that while a distance might be infinitely divisible in potential, it is not actually divided into an infinite number of parts before it is traversed. For Aristotle, motion was a continuous process, not a series of discrete, infinitely many steps. His solution, though influential, did not entirely quell the unease that Zeno's paradoxes instilled, as the intuitive leap from potential to actual infinity remained a point of contention. Later, medieval scholastic philosophers, armed with more sophisticated logical tools, continued to wrestle with Zeno. They explored the nature of continua and the relationship between points and lines, trying to find a way to reconcile the mathematical divisibility of space with the physical reality of motion. Some proposed that time itself might be composed of indivisible instants, or that motion was a continuous flow that transcended the static nature of points. Yet, the core challenge posed by Zeno, the seemingly insurmountable hurdle of infinite tasks, persisted, a testament to the paradox's enduring power. In the realm of dreams, where the rules of the waking world often bend and break, the dichotomy paradox finds a natural home. Imagine a dream where you are running towards something, perhaps a shimmering light or a beloved face, but no matter how fast you run, the distance between you and your goal seems to halve with every stride, never quite diminishing to zero. The sensation is one of perpetual approach, of an eternal almost. This dream of division, of an endlessly receding destination, captures the essence of Zeno's argument, the feeling of being caught in an infinite loop, where the very act of moving forward reveals yet another infinitesimal step that must be taken. It's a gentle torment, a reminder that even the simplest act of progression can conceal a profound mathematical and philosophical abyss. Zeno's dichotomy, therefore, is more than just a historical curiosity. It is a timeless invitation to contemplate the nature of continuity, discreteness, and the infinite. It forces us to ask fundamental questions about how we perceive and measure space and time. Is space truly infinitely divisible, or does it have a fundamental, indivisible unit? Is time a continuous flow, or a series of discrete moments? These are not merely academic questions, they touch upon the very structure of the universe and our place within it. The paradox, in its gentle insistence on the impossibility of motion, nudges us towards a deeper appreciation of the complexities hidden beneath the surface of our everyday experience. It reminds us that sometimes, the most profound truths are found not in what we can easily grasp, but in the subtle, unsettling whispers of contradiction that challenge our most deeply held assumptions. And for the dreamer, these whispers are not a source of frustration, but a lullaby, inviting us to explore the boundless, paradoxical landscapes of the mind. Chapter 2, Achilles and the Tortoise, a race against the unattainable. Among Zeno's ingenious arguments against motion, none is perhaps as famous and captivating as the paradox of Achilles and the tortoise. This fabled contest, often recounted as a race between the swift-footed hero Achilles and a slow, steady tortoise, serves as a vivid illustration of the perplexing nature of infinite divisibility. It is a story that, on the surface, seems utterly absurd, yet beneath its playful exterior lies a profound challenge to our intuitive understanding of motion, time, and the very possibility of one object overtaking another. Imagine the scene: the mighty Achilles, renowned for his incredible speed, stands ready to race a tortoise. To make the contest fair, or perhaps to highlight the paradox, the tortoise is given a head start, let's say, 100 meters. The race begins. Achilles, with his legendary swiftness, quickly covers the initial 100 meters, reaching the point where the tortoise began. But during the time it took Achilles to cover those 100 meters, the tortoise, though slow, has not been idle. It has moved forward a small distance, perhaps 10 meters. Now, Achilles must cover those 10 meters. Yet, by the time Achilles reaches that new point, the tortoise has again advanced, albeit by an even smaller distance, say 1 meter. This pattern continues. For every distance Achilles covers to reach the tortoise's previous position, the tortoise inevitably moves a little further ahead. The distance between them, though constantly diminishing, never quite vanishes. Achilles is forever playing catch-up, always arriving at a point where the tortoise was, only to find it has moved on. This is the heart of the Achilles and the tortoise paradox, the illusion of catching up. Zeno's argument suggests that Achilles can never truly overtake the tortoise because, to do so, he must first reach the tortoise's current position. But each time he reaches that position, the tortoise has already moved to a new, albeit closer, point. This creates an infinite series of ever-decreasing distances that Achilles must traverse. Just as in the dichotomy paradox, where one must complete an infinite number of half-steps, here Achilles must complete an infinite number of segments to close the gap. The paradox implies that the faster runner is perpetually destined to approach, but never quite reach, the slower one, leading to the counterintuitive conclusion that motion, and specifically the act of overtaking, is impossible. For the dreamer, this paradox resonates with the feeling of chasing an elusive goal, a horizon that recedes as quickly as it is approached. It's the gentle pace of eternity, where every step forward reveals another, smaller step that must be taken, creating a sense of perpetual motion without ultimate arrival. Imagine running in a dream, your legs pumping, the scenery blurring, yet the object of your pursuit remains just out of reach, always a fraction of a second, a fraction of a meter, ahead. This dream of an unattainable chase captures the essence of Zeno's argument, highlighting the psychological and philosophical impact of an infinite regress. The resolution of the Achilles and the tortoise paradox, like the dichotomy, lies primarily in the mathematical concept of infinite series and the development of calculus. While Zeno's contemporaries and immediate successors struggled to reconcile the argument with observed reality, later mathematicians realized that an infinite series of ever-decreasing positive numbers can, in fact, sum to a finite value. For instance, the series 1/2 plus 1/4 plus 1/8 plus approaches 1. In the case of Achilles and the tortoise, the sum of the infinite distances Achilles must cover to reach the tortoise's successive positions is indeed finite, and he will, in a finite amount of time, overtake the tortoise. Calculus provides the tools to precisely calculate when and where this overtaking occurs, offering a powerful mathematical awakening that cuts through the labyrinth of Zeno's logic. However, the mathematical resolution does not entirely diminish the philosophical weight of the paradox. Zeno's genius lay not in making a mathematical error, but in exposing the counterintuitive nature of infinity when applied to continuous motion. He highlighted a fundamental tension between our discrete way of thinking about points in space and moments in time, and the continuous flow of reality. Even with calculus, the conceptual leap required to understand how an infinite number of actions can be completed in a finite time remains a subtle one. The paradox forces us to consider whether space and time are truly continuous, infinitely divisible, or if there is some fundamental, indivisible unit at their core. It prompts us to reflect on the relationship between mathematical models and physical reality, and whether our abstract tools truly capture the essence of the world. In the gentle light of contemplation, the Achilles and the tortoise paradox stands as a timeless reminder that our intuitive grasp of the world can sometimes be misleading. It encourages us to look beyond the obvious, to question the assumptions embedded in our language and thought, and to appreciate the profound complexities that lie hidden within seemingly simple phenomena. For the dreamer, it is a story that speaks to the endless pursuit of knowledge, the beauty of an ever-receding horizon, and the quiet triumph of understanding that emerges when we dare to confront the gentle contradictions that shape our reality. It is a race not against the tortoise, but against the limits of our own perception, a race that, paradoxically, we are always winning, even as we continue to run. Chapter 3, The Arrow, Frozen in Flight. Having explored the endless journey of the dichotomy and the elusive chase of Achilles and the tortoise, we now turn to perhaps the most deceptively simple, yet profoundly unsettling, of Zeno's paradoxes, the arrow. This argument, like its predecessors, aims to demonstrate the impossibility of motion, but it does so by focusing on the nature of time and the state of an object at any given instant. It invites us to consider a moment so fleeting, so infinitesimally small, that motion itself seems to dissolve, leaving behind only a static, frozen image. Imagine an arrow in flight, soaring gracefully through the air towards its target. To our eyes, it is undeniably moving, a blur of speed and purpose. But Zeno asks us to consider this arrow at any single, indivisible instant of time. What is the arrow doing at that precise, unextended moment? If an instant has no duration, no temporal breadth, then during that instant, the arrow cannot be moving. For an object to move, it must change its position over a period of time. But in an instant, there is no period of time, only a single, fixed point. Therefore, at that instant, the arrow must be at rest. And if the arrow is at rest at every single instant of its flight, then, Zeno concludes, the arrow is never truly moving. It is, in essence, frozen in flight, a series of static images strung together, yet never truly animated by motion. This paradox challenges our fundamental understanding of how motion occurs. We intuitively perceive motion as a continuous process, a smooth transition from one point to another. But Zeno's arrow forces us to dissect this continuity, to examine its constituent moments. If each moment is a snapshot of stillness, how can a collection of stillness ever produce movement? It's like flipping through a series of photographs. Each photograph is static, yet when viewed in rapid succession, they create the illusion of motion. Zeno's argument suggests that this illusion is all there is, and that true, continuous motion is a conceptual impossibility. For the dreamer, the arrow paradox resonates deeply with the experience of a dream of stasis. Imagine a dream where you are running, or falling, or flying, but suddenly, everything freezes. You are suspended in midair, every muscle tensed, every detail sharp and clear, yet utterly motionless. Time itself seems to have stopped, and you exist in an eternal, unmoving present. This feeling of being caught in a series of frozen frames, where the dynamic world around you has been reduced to a sequence of still images, perfectly encapsulates the essence of Zeno's arrow. It's a quiet, unsettling thought, that the vibrant motion of our lives might be nothing more than a rapid succession of unmoving states. The philosophical implications of the arrow paradox are profound. It raises questions about the very nature of time. Is it continuous, like a flowing river, or discrete, like a string of pearls? If time is composed of indivisible instants, then how can anything change or move within those instants? This paradox, perhaps more than the others, highlights the tension between our intuitive experience of time as a continuous flow and the analytical attempt to break it down into discrete units. It also touches upon the concept of instantaneous velocity, a cornerstone of modern physics, which defines speed at a particular moment. Zeno's argument suggests that such a concept is inherently problematic if that moment has no duration. Modern physics, particularly quantum mechanics, has, in some ways, reopened the discussion around Zeno's paradoxes. The quantum Zeno effect, for instance, describes a phenomenon where frequent measurement of an unstable quantum system can prevent it from decaying. This is sometimes analogized to the arrow paradox, suggesting that by constantly observing a system, we can effectively freeze its evolution. While not a direct solution to Zeno's original philosophical problem, it demonstrates how the ancient paradox continues to inspire and inform contemporary scientific thought, revealing the enduring power of these seemingly simple arguments to probe the deepest mysteries of reality. Ultimately, the arrow paradox, like all of Zeno's contributions, serves as a powerful reminder of the limitations of our conceptual frameworks when confronted with the infinite and the continuous. It forces us to acknowledge that our everyday language and intuition, while perfectly adequate for navigating the practicalities of life, can falter when pushed to their logical extremes. For the dreamer, it is a contemplation on the ephemeral nature of movement, a gentle whisper that even the most dynamic processes can, at their core, be seen as a series of frozen moments. It encourages us to look at the world with fresh eyes, to appreciate the subtle dance between stillness and motion, and to find beauty in the profound questions that arise when we dare to dissect the very flow of time. The arrow, forever in flight, yet forever at rest, remains a timeless symbol of the gentle contradictions that illuminate the path of philosophical inquiry. Part 2. The Labyrinth of Language, Self-Reference and Truth. Chapter 4. The Liar Paradox, When Truth Betrays Itself. Having journeyed through the ancient landscapes where Zeno's paradoxes challenged the very possibility of motion, we now turn our gaze inward, towards the intricate architecture of language and thought. Here, within the seemingly straightforward realm of truth and falsehood, lies a paradox so fundamental, so deceptively simple, that it has confounded philosophers, logicians, and even the most casual thinkers for millennia. This is the liar paradox, a self-referential statement that, like a serpent devouring its own tail, creates an inescapable loop of contradiction, where truth betrays itself and logic dissolves into an unsettling ambiguity. The canonical form of the liar paradox is disarmingly brief: this sentence is false. At first glance, it appears harmless, perhaps even nonsensical. But attempt to assign a truth value to it, and the labyrinth reveals itself. If we assume the sentence "this sentence is false" is true, then, according to its own assertion, it must be false. This leads to a contradiction: it cannot be both true and false simultaneously. Conversely, if we assume the sentence "this sentence is false," then, by denying its assertion, we are forced to conclude that it must be true. Again, a contradiction arises: it cannot be both false and true. The sentence traps us in an endless oscillation, a logical merry-go-round where every attempt to pin down its truth value leads to its opposite. This is the simplest contradiction, a linguistic knot that defies untangling. It is not a factual error, nor a misunderstanding of terms. It is a paradox born from the very structure of language, specifically from the power of self-reference. When a statement refers to itself, especially in relation to its own truth, it can create a paradoxical mirror, reflecting and distorting reality in a way that shatters our conventional notions of logical consistency. The liar paradox exposes a deep vulnerability in our systems of logic and language, suggesting that even seemingly well-formed statements can lead to an impasse, a point where the rules of truth and falsehood break down. For the dreamer, the liar paradox resonates with the unsettling sensation of a dream where reality shifts and contradicts itself. Imagine dreaming that you are told, "Everything you see in this dream is not real." If you believe the statement, then the statement itself, being part of the dream, is not real, meaning what you see is real. But if what you see is real, then the statement is false, meaning what you see is not real. This dream of inconsistency, where the very act of believing or disbelieving a statement leads to its undoing, perfectly captures the essence of the liar paradox. It's a gentle madness, a reminder that even within the confines of our own minds, absolute certainty can be an elusive guest. The liar paradox is not a singular anomaly. It is a prototype for a family of self-referential paradoxes that have plagued thinkers across cultures and centuries. One of the earliest known forms is the Epimenides paradox, attributed to the Cretan philosopher Epimenides, who is said to have declared, "All Cretans are liars." If Epimenides, being a Cretan, is telling the truth, then his statement is true, which means all Cretans are liars, including himself, making his statement false. If he is lying, then his statement is false, meaning not all cretins are liars, which allows for the possibility that he is telling the truth. This ancient riddle, though slightly different in structure, shares the same self-undermining quality as the canonical liar. More whimsical, yet equally illustrative, is the Pinocchio paradox. What would happen if Pinocchio, whose nose grows when he lies, were to say, "My nose grows now"? If he is telling the truth, his nose should not grow, but if his nose does not grow, then his statement "my nose grows now" is false, which means his nose should grow. And if his nose grows, then his statement was true, meaning his nose should not grow. This delightful paradox, rooted in a children's story, vividly demonstrates the logical bind created by self-referential statements that directly impact their own truth conditions. The attempts to resolve the liar paradox have been as varied and intricate as the paradox itself. One common approach involves restricting the concept of self-reference, arguing that statements cannot legitimately refer to their own truth value. Another strategy is to introduce different levels or hierarchies of language, where a statement about truth must belong to a higher linguistic level than the statement it refers to. While these solutions offer formal ways to avoid the contradiction, the intuitive discomfort of the liar paradox persists, reminding us of the inherent slipperiness of language and the profound challenges in constructing perfectly consistent logical systems. For the dreamer, the liar paradox is a powerful symbol of the elusive nature of certainty. It encourages us to embrace the ambiguities, to find beauty in the unresolvable, and to understand that even in the pursuit of clear, logical thought, there will always be moments when the very tools we use turn back on themselves, revealing the limits of their own power. It is a gentle reminder that the quest for truth is not always a straight line, but often a winding path through a landscape where the familiar can suddenly become strange, and where the most profound insights emerge from the very heart of contradiction. The liar paradox, in its elegant simplicity, continues to whisper its unsettling truth, inviting us to ponder the mysteries of language, logic, and the self-referential loops that bind them. Chapter 5, Russell's Paradox, the Set That Cannot Be. From the ancient whispers of Zeno and the self-devouring statements of the liar paradox, our journey through gentle contradictions now leads us to a pivotal moment in the history of logic and mathematics. At the turn of the 20th century, as mathematicians sought to establish a firm foundation for their discipline, a seemingly innocuous question posed by Bertrand Russell sent shockwaves through the intellectual world, shaking the very bedrock of mathematical certainty. This was Russell's paradox, a simple yet devastating logical antinomy that exposed a fundamental flaw in the then prevailing naive set theory, revealing that even the most rigorous systems could harbor internal contradictions. To understand Russell's paradox, we must first briefly enter the realm of set theory. A set, in mathematics, is simply a collection of distinct objects. For example, the set of all prime numbers, the set of all red cars, or the set of all books on a shelf. Naive set theory, as developed by George Cantor, allowed for the formation of sets based on any definable property. If you could describe a characteristic, you could, in principle, form a set of all things that possess that characteristic. This seemed like a perfectly reasonable and powerful way to build the edifice of mathematics. Russell's genius lay in asking a question that, while seemingly innocent, exploited a hidden vulnerability in this seemingly robust system. He asked, consider the set of all sets that do not contain themselves. Does this set contain itself? Let's call this peculiar collection R. If R contains itself, then by its own definition, the set of all sets that do not contain themselves, it should not contain itself. This is a contradiction. Conversely, if R does not contain itself, then by its own definition, the set of all sets that do not contain themselves, it should contain itself. Again, a contradiction. Like the liar paradox, Russell's paradox traps us in an inescapable logical loop, where every attempt to resolve its status leads to its opposite. This paradox was not a mere intellectual curiosity, it was a crisis for mathematics. If such a fundamental concept as a set could lead to a contradiction, then the entire logical foundation upon which mathematics was being built was unstable. It was as if the very ground beneath the grand cathedral of numbers and equations had suddenly given way. The dream of a perfectly consistent and self-contained mathematical universe was shattered, at least temporarily. To make this abstract problem more relatable, Russell himself popularized an analogy known as the barber paradox, which we will explore in more detail in the next chapter. For now, suffice it to say that the barber paradox, which asks whether a barber who shaves all and only those men who do not shave themselves shaves himself, is a direct, everyday illustration of the same logical structure as Russell's set-theoretic problem. It brings the abstract contradiction into the tangible world, making its unsettling implications more accessible. The response to Russell's paradox was swift and transformative. Mathematicians and logicians recognized the urgent need to rebuild the foundations of set theory on more secure ground. This led to the development of axiomatic set theories, such as Zermelo-Fraenkel set theory, ZF, and its extension with the axiom of choice, ZFC. These theories introduced explicit rules and restrictions on how sets could be formed, specifically prohibiting the kind of unrestricted self-reference that gave rise to Russell's paradox. For instance, in these axiomatic systems, a set cannot contain itself, and the collection of all sets is not itself considered a set in the same way that other sets are. This rebuilding of the mathematical edifice was a testament to the resilience and adaptability of human thought. While the initial discovery of the paradox was a moment of profound crisis, it ultimately led to a deeper and more rigorous understanding of the principles underlying mathematics. It was a process of intellectual refinement, where the gentle contradiction served as a catalyst for greater clarity and precision. The dream of consistency was not abandoned, but rather pursued with a newfound awareness of the subtle pitfalls that lie hidden within seemingly simple definitions. For the dreamer, Russell's paradox offers a contemplation on the limits of categorization and the dangers of unchecked abstraction. It reminds us that even in our attempts to create perfectly ordered systems, there can be inherent instabilities, points where the very rules we devise turn back on themselves. It's a whisper that even the most foundational concepts can harbor a hidden fragility, and that true understanding often comes from confronting these vulnerabilities head-on. The paradox, in its elegant simplicity, continues to stand as a monument to the power of logical inquiry, a reminder that the pursuit of knowledge is an ongoing process of questioning, refining, and occasionally, rebuilding the very frameworks of our thought. Chapter 6, The Barber Paradox, A Close Shave with Contradiction. As we navigate the intricate pathways of self-reference and truth, we encounter a paradox that, while not as mathematically foundational as Russell's, is perhaps its most charming and accessible cousin. The Barber paradox, often attributed to Bertrand Russell himself as a popularization of his more abstract set-theoretic problem, brings the unsettling implications of self-contradiction into the familiar setting of a village barbershop. It's a seemingly simple scenario that, upon closer inspection, reveals an inescapable logical bind, a close shave with contradiction that leaves us pondering the limits of definition and classification. Imagine, if you will, a quaint village where there lives a barber. This barber, a meticulous and perhaps overly logical individual, has a very specific rule for his trade: he shaves all and only those men in the village who do not shave themselves. This means two things. First, if a man does not shave himself, the barber shaves him. Second, if a man shaves himself, the barber does not shave him. The rule seems clear, unambiguous, and perfectly reasonable. But then, a crucial question arises: does the barber shave himself? Let's try to answer this question by applying the barber's own rule. If the barber shaves himself, then according to his rule, he shaves only those men who do not shave themselves. He must be a man who does not shave himself. This leads to a contradiction: he cannot both shave himself and not shave himself. Conversely, if the barber does not shave himself, then according to his rule, he shaves all those men who do not shave themselves. He must be shaved by the barber. But the only barber in the village is himself, so he must shave himself. Again, a contradiction: he cannot both not shave himself and shave himself. The barber, trapped by his own perfectly logical rule, finds himself in an impossible situation, a logical knot that cannot be untied. The barber paradox, in its elegant simplicity, serves as a powerful analogy for Russell's more abstract set-theoretic paradox. Just as Russell's paradox exposed the problem of a set containing itself, or not containing itself, based on a self-referential definition, the barber paradox illustrates the same issue with a concrete example. The barber's rule creates a category that cannot logically contain its own creator, nor can it exclude him without contradiction. It highlights how seemingly straightforward definitions, when applied reflexively, can lead to fundamental inconsistencies. For the dreamer, the barber paradox resonates with the feeling of being caught in a self-made trap, a dream where the rules you establish for yourself turn out to be inherently contradictory. It's the dream of self-definition, where our attempts to categorize and define the world, and our place within it, can sometimes lead to an unsettling realization that our categories are not as neat and tidy as we'd like them to be. The barber, diligently applying his rule, becomes a symbol of our own human desire for order and logical consistency, and the gentle frustration that arises when that order proves elusive. The philosophical implications of the barber paradox extend beyond mere logical amusement. It illuminates issues in classification, set theory, and the very limits of language to describe reality without generating contradictions. It suggests that not all properties can be used to define sets or categories without leading to paradoxes. This realization was crucial in the development of modern axiomatic set theory, which, as discussed with Russell's paradox, introduced restrictions on set formation to prevent such self-referential contradictions. While the Barber paradox is often presented as a simplified version of Russell's, it carries its own unique charm and pedagogical value. It allows us to grasp the essence of a complex logical problem without getting bogged down in abstract mathematical notation. It reminds us that even in the most mundane settings, profound philosophical questions can lie hidden, waiting to be uncovered by a curious mind. The Barber, with his impossible task, becomes a timeless figure, a gentle reminder that logic, while powerful, is not without its boundaries, and that sometimes, the most precise definitions can lead to the most perplexing dilemmas. In the quiet hum of the barbershop, where the scent of shaving cream mingles with the subtle scent of logical impossibility, the Barber paradox continues to invite contemplation. It encourages us to be mindful of the definitions we create, the categories we impose, and the potential for self-reference to unravel even the most carefully constructed systems. For the dreamer, it is a story that speaks to the inherent complexities of language and thought, a close shave with contradiction that leaves us with a deeper appreciation for the delicate balance required to navigate the labyrinth of logic. And in that balance, we find not frustration, but a gentle invitation to explore the beautiful, sometimes baffling, intricacies of our own minds. Part 3, The Shifting Sands of Perception, Vagueness and Identity. Chapter 7, The Sorites Paradox, The Heap of Indecision. Having navigated the crystalline, yet often contradictory, structures of logic and language, we now venture into a realm where the lines blur, where definitions waver, and where certainty dissolves into the shifting sands of perception. This is the domain of vagueness, and its most iconic inhabitant is the Sorites paradox, often known as the paradox of the heap. It is a gentle, almost poetic, contradiction that challenges our intuitive understanding of categories and the very words we use to describe the world, revealing the inherent slipperiness of language. The Sorites paradox, originating in ancient Greece, typically begins with a heap of sand. Undeniably, a large pile of sand constitutes a heap. Now, imagine removing one single grain of sand from this heap. Does it cease to be a heap? Most would agree, no, it is still a heap. What if we remove another grain? Still a heap. We can continue this process, removing one grain at a time, and at each step, it seems intuitively true that the removal of a single grain does not transform a heap into a non-heap. But if we continue this process long enough, eventually we will be left with only a few grains of sand, or even just one. At what precise point, then, did the heap cease to be a heap? Where is the boundary, the magical threshold, that separates a heap from a non-heap? The paradox arises because our everyday language, while incredibly flexible and useful, often employs vague predicates, words like tall, bold, rich, or heap, that do not have precise, sharply defined boundaries. There is no single grain of sand whose removal definitively transforms a heap into a non-heap. Each individual step seems insignificant, yet the cumulative effect is undeniable. The paradox forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that our categories, which seem so solid and distinct, are often fluid and ill-defined at their edges. It's a gentle erosion of certainty, a slow unraveling of our linguistic precision. For the dreamer, the Sorites paradox resonates with the experience of a dream where gradual changes accumulate imperceptibly, leading to a sudden, surprising transformation. Imagine a dream where a vibrant color slowly fades, shade by shade, until you can no longer tell if it's blue or green. Or a familiar face subtly alters, feature by feature, until it becomes someone entirely different, yet you can't pinpoint the exact moment of change. This dreaming in shades of gray, where clear distinctions dissolve into a spectrum of ambiguity, perfectly captures the essence of the Sorites paradox. It's a quiet contemplation on the nature of thresholds and the limits of our ability to draw sharp lines in a world that often presents itself in continuous gradients. The philosophical responses to the Sorites paradox are as varied as the grains of sand in a heap. Some philosophers propose that there is a precise, albeit unknown, boundary, and our inability to identify it is merely an epistemic limitation. Others argue that vagueness is an inherent feature of language and reality, and that attempts to impose sharp boundaries where none exist are misguided. This has led to the development of alternative logical systems, such as fuzzy logic, which allows for degrees of truth rather than strict true-false dichotomies. In fuzzy logic, a statement can be partially true or partially false, reflecting the nuanced reality of vague predicates. Another approach, supervaluationism, suggests that vague statements are neither true nor false, but rather lack a truth value, unless they are true, or false, under all possible ways of making them precise. Regardless of the proposed solution, the Sorites paradox remains a powerful reminder of the challenges inherent in mapping our language onto the complexities of the world. It highlights the gap between our conceptual categories and the continuous nature of many phenomena. It encourages us to be more mindful of the limitations of our words, and to appreciate the subtle ways in which meaning can shift and dissolve at the margins. It's a paradox that doesn't necessarily lead to a logical contradiction in the same way as the Liar or Russell's paradoxes, but rather to a profound sense of indecision, a gentle nudge towards embracing ambiguity. In the quiet contemplation of a disappearing heap, the Sorites paradox invites us to reflect on the arbitrary nature of many of our classifications. It suggests that sometimes, the most profound insights come not from finding definitive answers, but from recognizing the inherent fluidity of the world and the limitations of our attempts to pin it down with precise language. For the dreamer, it is a story that speaks to the beauty of imperceptible change, the wisdom of embracing uncertainty, and the endless fascination of a world where even a single grain of sand can hold the key to a philosophical puzzle. It is a gentle reminder that the journey of understanding often involves walking along the blurry edges of definition, where the familiar transforms into the unknown, one imperceptible step at a time. Chapter 8. The Ship of Theseus, the Ever-Changing Identity. From the dissolving boundaries of the Sorites paradox, we sail onward to another profound contemplation on the nature of identity and change, the Ship of Theseus. This ancient thought experiment, attributed to the Greek historian Plutarch, presents a seemingly straightforward scenario that quickly unravels into a deep philosophical puzzle, forcing us to question what truly constitutes the identity of an object, or even a person, over time. It is a gentle yet persistent challenge to our intuitive sense of continuity, inviting us to consider how much change something can undergo before it ceases to be itself. The legend begins with the ship of the mythical Greek hero Theseus, the vessel in which he sailed from Crete after slaying the Minotaur. This ship was preserved by the Athenians for centuries, a sacred relic of their glorious past. As time wore on, however, its wooden planks began to rot and decay. To maintain its integrity and honor its legacy, the Athenians diligently replaced each rotting plank with a new, identical one. Piece by piece, over many years, every single component of the original ship was replaced. The question then arises, is this meticulously rebuilt vessel still the ship of Theseus? Most people, when presented with this scenario, would likely agree that, yes, it is still the ship of Theseus. The process of gradual replacement seems to preserve its identity. But the paradox deepens. What if, as the old planks were removed, they were not discarded but carefully preserved and stored? And what if, once all the original planks had been replaced in the first ship, someone decided to reassemble the original planks into a second ship? Now we have two ships, one made of entirely new materials, but continuously maintained as the ship of Theseus, and another made of all the original materials, but reassembled. Which of these, if either, is the true ship of Theseus? Or are neither, or both? The thought experiment forces us to confront the criteria by which we judge identity over time. This paradox challenges our understanding of what makes something the same thing despite undergoing change. Is identity based on the continuity of its physical components? Or is it based on its form, its function, its history, or perhaps the narrative we assign to it? The Ship of Theseus highlights the tension between these different criteria, revealing that our intuitive notions of identity are often more complex and less consistent than we might assume. It's a gentle unraveling of certainty, a quiet whisper that even the most enduring objects are in a constant state of becoming. For the dreamer, the Ship of Theseus resonates with the experience of personal transformation, where the self undergoes continuous change, yet maintains a sense of continuity. Imagine a dream where you are looking at an old photograph of yourself, perhaps from childhood. You recognize the person in the picture as you, yet every cell in your body has been replaced countless times since that photograph was taken. Your thoughts, experiences, and even your personality have evolved. Are you still the same person? This dream of continuity, where the essence of who we are persists despite constant physical and mental renewal, perfectly captures the essence of the Ship of Theseus. It's a contemplation on the fluid nature of being, a reminder that identity is not a static state but a dynamic process. The philosophical implications of the Ship of Theseus are vast, extending far beyond wooden vessels. It applies to any entity that undergoes change while retaining a perceived identity: living organisms, organizations, nations, and even our own personal identity. For instance, in biology, cells are constantly dying and being replaced, yet we consider ourselves the same person from birth to old age. In law, a corporation can change all its employees, its leadership, and its assets, yet remain the same legal entity. The paradox forces us to consider what criteria are most salient for preserving identity in different contexts. Various philosophical responses have been proposed. Some argue for a criterion of continuous existence, where the history and narrative of an object are paramount. Others focus on functional identity, where an object remains the same as long as it performs the same function. Still others emphasize the importance of form or structure. There is no single, universally accepted solution, which is precisely what makes the paradox so enduring and thought-provoking. In the quiet contemplation of the ship of Theseus, we are invited to reflect on the dynamic interplay between persistence and change. It suggests that identity is not a fixed, immutable essence, but a complex construction, often dependent on the perspective we adopt and the criteria we prioritize. For the dreamer, it is a story that speaks to the constant renewal of life, the beauty of transformation, and the profound mystery of what makes anything, including ourselves, endure through the ceaseless flow of time. It is a gentle reminder that even as we change, we remain, in some essential way, the same, navigating the ever-shifting currents of existence with a quiet sense of continuity. Part 4, Time's Tangled Threads, Causality and Choice. Chapter 9, The Grandfather Paradox, Rewriting the Past. From the shifting sands of identity, our journey through gentle contradictions now plunges into the most captivating and mind-bending of realms, time itself. Here, where cause and effect intertwine in intricate patterns, lies the grandfather paradox, a thought experiment that has fueled countless science fiction narratives and profound philosophical debates. It is a paradox that explores the allure and danger of temporal travel, forcing us to confront the very fabric of causality and the unsettling implications of altering the past. Imagine, if you will, a daring dreamer who invents a time machine. Driven by a mysterious impulse, this dreamer decides to travel back in time to a period before their own birth. Their mission, for the sake of the paradox, is to prevent their grandparents from meeting, or perhaps even to cause the death of their own grandfather before he has any children. The act is performed, the past is seemingly altered, and the dreamer returns to their present. But here lies the profound contradiction. If the dreamer successfully prevented their grandfather from meeting their grandmother, or caused their grandfather's death, then their own parent would never have been born. And if their parent was never born, then the dreamer themselves would never have existed. If the dreamer never existed, then they could not have traveled back in time to perform the act that prevented their own existence. This creates an inescapable logical loop. The act that causes the non-existence of the dreamer also prevents the act from ever happening, leading to a profound causal dilemma. The grandfather paradox is a classic example of a causal loop, where an event in the future, the time traveler's journey, influences an event in the past, the prevention of their own birth, which in turn negates the very possibility of the future event. It challenges our intuitive understanding of linear time and the inviolability of cause and effect. If the past can be changed, what happens to the present? Does it simply cease to exist, or does it branch off into an alternate reality? The paradox suggests that time travel, at least in its simplest form, is inherently self-contradictory, an impossible act that unravels the very fabric of reality. For the dreamer, the grandfather paradox resonates with the unsettling sensation of a dream where the past is fluid, and actions have unforeseen, self-negating consequences. Imagine dreaming that you are trying to fix a past mistake, only to find that your very attempt to change it erases the reason you wanted to change it in the first place. This dream of alternate realities, where every choice creates a new timeline, or where the universe conspires to prevent causal inconsistencies, perfectly captures the essence of the grandfather paradox. It's a thrilling, yet ultimately frustrating, contemplation on the limits of free will when confronted with the rigid dictates of causality. The philosophical implications of the grandfather paradox are vast, touching upon fundamental questions about free will, determinism, and the nature of time itself. If time is truly linear and unchangeable, then time travel to the past, with the ability to alter events, would be impossible. This leads to theories of a fixed timeline, where any attempt to change the past is either destined to fail, or is already part of the predetermined sequence of events. Some solutions propose that the universe has a self-correcting mechanism, often called a causality protection agency, that prevents paradoxes from occurring. Others suggest the multiverse theory, where traveling to the past and making a change simply creates a new, alternate timeline, leaving the original timeline undisturbed. The multiverse theory, in particular, offers a dreamy escape from the rigid constraints of a single, unchangeable past. In this view, every decision, every possibility, branches off into a new universe. So, if our dreamer travels back in time and prevents their grandfather's existence, they are not erasing their own timeline, but merely creating a new one where they never existed. The original timeline, with the dreamer intact, continues to exist, allowing for a consistent, albeit infinitely branching, reality. This concept allows for the allure of time travel without the logical inconsistencies of paradoxes, transforming the impossible into a mere journey to a different reality. While the grandfather paradox remains a theoretical construct, its power lies in its ability to force us to think critically about the nature of time and causality. It highlights the delicate balance that must exist for a consistent universe, and the profound implications of even a single alteration to the past. It encourages us to consider whether our choices are truly free, or if they are merely part of a larger, predetermined cosmic dance. The paradox, in its elegant simplicity, continues to serve as a thought-provoking challenge to our understanding of the universe, a gentle whisper that the past, present, and future might be far more interconnected and complex than we can ever fully grasp. In the quiet contemplation of time's tangled threads, the grandfather paradox invites us to reflect on the profound mystery of existence itself. It is a story that speaks to the human desire to control destiny, the allure of rewriting history, and the humbling realization that some logical constraints might be as fundamental as the laws of physics. For the dreamer, it is a journey into the heart of possibility and impossibility, a reminder that even in the boundless expanse of imagination, there are certain logical boundaries that, like the gentle pull of gravity, keep our dreams tethered to a consistent reality. Chapter 10, The Unexpected Hanging Paradox, The Surprise That Isn't. Our final foray into the realm of time's tangled threads brings us to a paradox that, while seemingly a simple riddle, unravels into a profound contemplation on the nature of prediction, certainty, and the very meaning of surprise. The unexpected hanging paradox, also known as the surprise examination paradox, is a classic example of how logical deduction, when applied to a seemingly straightforward premise, can lead to a self-defeating conclusion, leaving us in a state of delightful bewilderment. Imagine a prisoner, condemned to death, who is told by the judge, "You will be hanged at noon on one weekday next week, but you will not know which day it is until the hangman comes to your cell on the morning of the hanging." The prisoner, being a keen logician, begins to reason about his fate. He thinks, the hanging cannot be on Friday. If I am still alive on Thursday evening, then I will know for certain that the hanging must be on Friday, because Friday is the only remaining weekday. But the judge said I would not know the day until the morning of the hanging. Therefore, it cannot be Friday. Having eliminated Friday, the prisoner continues his deduction. Now, if it can't be Friday, then the last possible day for the hanging is Thursday. But if I am still alive on Wednesday evening, and I know it can't be Friday, then I will know for certain that the hanging must be on Thursday. Again, this contradicts the judge's statement that it will be a surprise. Therefore, it cannot be Thursday. The prisoner continues this line of reasoning, eliminating Wednesday, then Tuesday, and finally Monday. His conclusion, the hanging can never happen, because any day it occurs, he would have been able to predict it, thus violating the condition of surprise. Confident in his logical deduction, the prisoner is understandably surprised when, on Wednesday morning, the hangman arrives at his cell. The hanging occurs, and it is, indeed, a surprise. The paradox lies in the clash between the prisoner's impeccable logical deduction, which proves the hanging cannot happen, and the actual event, which demonstrates that it can and does happen, and is a surprise. The paradox highlights the inherent difficulty in making predictions about future events when those predictions themselves influence the outcome, or when the conditions of the prediction are self-referential. For the dreamer, the unexpected hanging paradox resonates with the unsettling feeling of a dream where foreknowledge becomes a burden, and attempts to predict the future lead to its undoing. Imagine dreaming that you are told you will receive a surprise gift tomorrow. You try to deduce what the gift might be, and in doing so, you realize that if you successfully predict it, it won't be a surprise. But if you can't predict it, then it will be a surprise. This dream of foreknowledge, where the very act of knowing something negates its defining characteristic, perfectly captures the essence of the unexpected hanging paradox. It's a playful, yet profound, contemplation on the limits of our ability to anticipate and control the future. The philosophical implications of the unexpected hanging paradox are far-reaching, touching upon areas such as epistemology, the theory of knowledge, decision theory, and the philosophy of language. Some proposed solutions attempt to break the logical chain by arguing that the prisoner's initial premise, that he will not know the day, is subtly flawed, or that the concept of surprise is ill-defined in this context. Others suggest that the paradox arises from a confusion between what is logically deducible and what is practically knowable. Real-world echoes of this paradox can be found in various situations, from unexpected announcements to market predictions. For example, if a company announces that it will make a surprise announcement next week, the very act of announcing the surprise diminishes its surprising nature. Similarly, in financial markets, if everyone predicts a certain stock will rise, their collective action of buying the stock can cause it to rise, thus fulfilling the prediction but removing the element of surprise for those who acted on it. The paradox serves as a cautionary tale about the complexities of self-referential predictions and the inherent limitations of logical deduction when applied to situations involving uncertainty and human agency. In the quiet contemplation of the unexpected hanging paradox, we are invited to reflect on the delicate dance between logic and reality, between prediction and outcome. It suggests that some truths are only revealed in the moment, and that the future, despite our best efforts to deduce it, can always hold an element of genuine surprise. For the dreamer, it is a story that speaks to the humbling realization that not everything can be known in advance, and that sometimes, the most profound experiences are those that defy our expectations and logical foresight. It is a gentle reminder that life, like a well-crafted paradox, often reserves its most surprising twists for the very moment we think we have it all figured out. Conclusion: embracing the gentle contradictions. Our 3-hour journey through the labyrinthine corridors of logic and the whimsical landscapes of paradoxes now draws to a close. We have wandered from the ancient Greek marketplace, where Zeno's subtle arguments dissolved motion into an infinite series of stillness, to the modern intellectual battlegrounds where Russell's elegant contradiction shook the very foundations of mathematics. Along the way, we have encountered the self-devouring statements of the liar, the shifting sands of the Sorites, the ever-changing identity of the ship of Theseus, and the mind-bending loops of the grandfather and unexpected hanging paradoxes. Each has offered a unique glimpse into the intricate dance between our desire for order and the inherent complexities of reality. The beauty of paradox lies not in its resolution, for often, a definitive solution remains elusive, but in its power to illuminate. These gentle contradictions are not flaws in the universe, but rather profound insights disguised as riddles. They serve as intellectual catalysts, forcing us to question our most deeply held assumptions about space, time, language, identity, and causality. They expose the limits of our conceptual frameworks, the inherent slipperiness of language, and the surprising ways in which seemingly simple ideas can unravel into profound philosophical dilemmas. In their presence, we are reminded that the world is far richer and more nuanced than our everyday intuitions often suggest. For the dreamer, the world of logic and paradoxes is not a rigid, unforgiving landscape, but a fluid, ever-changing dreamscape. Here, reason and imagination intertwine, and the pursuit of truth becomes an act of creative exploration. The paradoxes invite us to embrace ambiguity, to hold conflicting ideas in mind simultaneously, and to find beauty in the unresolved. They teach us that sometimes, the most profound understanding comes not from finding a single, clear answer, but from appreciating the intricate patterns of the questions themselves. They are a lullaby for the analytical mind, a gentle whisper that even in the most rigorous systems, there is room for wonder and a touch of the inexplicable. We have seen how Zeno's paradoxes, initially designed to support a philosophy of unchanging unity, inadvertently paved the way for a deeper understanding of infinity and the calculus. Russell's paradox, a crisis for mathematics, ultimately led to the development of more rigorous axiomatic systems, strengthening the very foundations it sought to undermine. The liar paradox continues to challenge our theories of truth, while the Sorites and ship of Theseus remind us of the vagueness inherent in our language and the fluid nature of identity. And the time travel paradoxes, though fictional, compel us to ponder the profound implications of causality and free will. In the end, the journey through these gentle contradictions is not about conquering them, but about befriending them. It is about learning to live with the delightful ambiguities, to find peace in the unresolved, and to appreciate the intellectual humility that paradoxes instill. They are a constant reminder that our understanding of the universe is always evolving, always expanding, and that there will always be new questions to ask, new mysteries to unravel. The pursuit of knowledge is an endless fascination, a continuous inquiry into the nature of reality, where the most profound insights often emerge from the very heart of contradiction. So, as we emerge from this 3-hour contemplation, let us carry with us not just a newfound appreciation for these logical puzzles, but also a renewed sense of wonder for the world. Let us continue to question, to explore, and to dream, knowing that in the whispers of contradiction, there lies an endless source of intellectual delight and a deeper understanding of the beautiful, paradoxical tapestry of existence. The journey continues, for the curious mind, the dreamer, and all who dare to embrace the gentle contradictions that shape our reality.